Israel is a country that has no place on our land. We must remove that country because it constitutes a security, military, and political catastrophe to the Arab and Islamic nation and must be finished. We are not ashamed to say this with full force. We must teach Israel a lesson, and we will do this again and again. The Alaska flood is just the first time, and there will be a second, a third, a fourth, because we have the determination, the resolve, and the capabilities to fight. The occupation must come to an end.
Occupation where? In the Gaza Strip?
No, I am talking about all the Palestinian lands.
Does that mean the annihilation of Israel?
Yes, of course. The existence of Israel is what causes all that pain, blood, and tears. It is Israel, not us. We are the victims of the occupation, period. Therefore, nobody should blame us for the things we do. On October 7th, October 10th, October 1 million, everything we do is justified.
Okay. So joining me now is former U.S. Ambassador to Israel. Tom Nides is here. He left his post in July, took a job here in New York at Wells Fargo, but he just stepped down from that position to focus on what is happening now in the Middle East. Ambassador Nides, good to have you with us.
Welcome. Thank you for having me.
Thank you very much. Why did you make that decision?
Listen, this is going to be potentially the next 30 days, the most important 30 days in Israel's history. How they execute the determination to get rid of Hamas. I just watched the first segment. This is why Hamas needs to end. This is exactly why Israel needs to do what they need to do to alleviate the threat of Hamas on Israel. Second, they've got to focus on making sure that, that those who were kidnapped that are sitting in those tunnels get out. Third, as important as anything, is making sure America has their back as it relates to what's going on with Hezbollah in the north. And finally, they've got to work on the importance of this humanitarian relief in the south. This war is not with the Palestinian people. This war is with Hamas. No one should misunderstand that. And listening to him and talk about and how he believes his only goal is to destroy the state of Israel. It wasn't about, let's create a two-state solution. Let's make lives better for the Palestinian people. They don't care about the lives of the Palestinian people. They care about the destruction of the state of Israel.
And we're watching what's going on there, and we know that they have headquarters underneath the Al-Shifa hospital, and that those areas are being hit. I don't want to play more of this individual that we just heard from, but he actually said we didn't want to harm civilians. There were complications on the ground on October 7th. There was a party in the area with a civilian population, he said. It was a large area, like 40 kilometers.
Is that the reason that they killed babies and ripped kids off from their parents and dragged them across the border into Gaza, and having 240 men and women and grandmas and grandpas sitting in some dreary tunnel somewhere underneath Gaza City? Really? Is it the reason why they use Palestinians as human shields in hospitals and headquarters underneath it? Hamas has one issue. One thing they care about is the destruction of the state of Israel. No one should misunderstand that. At the same time, I keep repeating, our war cannot be with the Palestinian people. The vast, vast majority of the Palestinians who live in Gaza do not like Hamas, do want to be part of Hamas. They want to live in a life that they have an opportunity and a future. This is no future with Hamas.
So now you have attacks coming from the Houthis on the Yemen side of the Middle East. Also, we see these skirmishes from Hezbollah in the north. When you were ambassador just a short time ago, and you and I spent time together there, visited together briefly, did you ever imagine at that moment that this would be happening just a few months after you left that post?
Well, Martha, you know, and I talked about this. Israel is surrounded by its enemies. If you look from the north, the south, the east, and the west, there are people who want to destroy this very small democratic state. And make no mistake, the idea of what President Biden has done by putting those ships in the Mediterranean sends a very strong message to those who want to do harm to Israel. Don't. As the president likes to say, superpowers don't bluff. And I trust the president's idea to make sure that the Hezbollah or the Houthis or the Iranians directly will not get into this because of the forcefulness of this administration. This is not a partisan conversation. The Republicans support this, the Democrats support this, and ultimately the importance to America's security. We all talk about Israel, but this is about America's security in the region. the men and women, the troops that we have all over the Middle East. So this is not just about Israel, of course, important as it is. It's also important to America and the message it says to anyone who wants to do harm to America as well as Israel. What
do you say to those who say Iran wouldn't have made these moves under Trump, that they didn't, that he, oversaw the operation that had Soleimani killed, and that things were quiet for quite some time after that?
Listen, I'm not going to get into partisan comments or politics. This is not what it's now. This is the most important 30 days and potentially in Israel's history we're about ready to watch. This is when politics needs to be put aside, the force of focusing on what's at stake here. There are 240 lives of people sitting in a tunnel in Gaza. We need to get those people out, and we need to stop Hamas today.
I want to talk to you about that because there are developments that have happened. Some Americans have come out through the Rafah gate earlier today. Obviously, this is the kind of thing that you would have been overseeing at the American consulate. We have Americans who are held. So many questions that don't have answers. Who are these 35 Americans who were killed? We haven't seen pictures of them. Who are these Americans who are hostages? Are they unaccounted for, or are they hostages? We're about to hear from Alex Hogan, but let me just answer that. Why haven't we got more clarity on all of these Americans involved?
Well, yesterday morning and today, I spoke to a bunch of the American families. It's heartbreaking. I started my conversation by saying, listen, I'm not going to tell you again how sorry I am, because words don't, you've heard that enough. Let's talk about what we can do together collectively to get your loved ones out. And so this is about these all the families know what's going on. And obviously the United States is working full time, as Secretary Blinken is, as the president is, as the vice president is, working to try to get these hostages out using the influences we have with the Qataris and with the Egyptians. And you've seen a little bit of movement here, obviously, in the last 14 hours. Hopefully there'll be more to come, but there's a lot of work to do.
All right, hang with us here for a moment if you can, Ambassador. And we want to go, we were just saying the State Department has confirmed that U.S. citizens did depart, some of them, Gaza today through the Rafah gate, crossing into Egypt. Watch this.
The situation remains extremely fluid, but this has been an important breakthrough. And we will keep working on it to ensure that all of the U.S. citizens who wish to depart safely from Gaza can do so.
So this is the Okal family of Massachusetts. They're among the hundreds of Americans stuck in Gaza right now. They say that they have run out of drinking water. They're living in fear of an imminent ground invasion. We have been in touch with their lawyer, who says that the family has not yet received any information about how they can depart. They were there visiting in Gaza, visiting family. They live, as I said, in Massachusetts. Correspondent Alex Hogan has more for us on this story, reporting live from Tel Aviv. Hi, Alex.
Hi, Martha. So what we've seen today, this is the first time that we've seen foreign national passport holders be able to leave the Strip since the start of the war about 3 weeks ago. Now, nearly a month. It's been devastating conditions for people who are still there trying to get out. And we do know that a group of Americans was part of that larger group that managed to exit, going to Egypt. And the White House says it will do everything it possibly can to get all Americans out.
In the past 24 hours, we have informed U.S. citizens and their family members with whom we are in contact that they will be assigned specific departure dates. We have asked them to continue to monitor their email regularly over the next 24 to 72 hours for specific instructions about how to exit.
Well, the clock is ticking for desperate families like that one American couple that you mentioned and their baby from Massachusetts, the Okal family. They have been stuck there for 25 days now. They have gone to the Rafah crossing. They have tried to leave, but they have been unable to do so. And their attorney is calling out the Biden administration for failing to help them get out so far, saying that this really is becoming a dangerous situation for all Americans. Now, as the IDF is pressing forward in this multi-branch attack in the north, the State Department told Americans in Gaza essentially to be ready to leave. But today we are learning that that family says that they have so far had no word from the State Department about when exactly they would be able to leave. The State Department also says that it expects to see more aid trucks to arrive in Gaza. Again, the dire conditions there, not only for foreign nationals, but of course for the civilians who are there. We are learning a lot about the tensions in the area and what negotiations will likely need to be underway to get some of those Americans out, Martha. And Secretary of State Antony Blinken is expected to be here in Israel on Friday.
Okay, Alex, thank you very much. Alex Hogan reporting from Tel Aviv. Tom, when you listen to that, what goes through your mind? This family apparently is going to speak with Neil Cavuto a little bit later this afternoon.
Breaks my heart. I want them out.
Yeah.
You know, we're human beings, folks. I mean, we need to get every American out who wants to get out. There are, I think, around 500 Americans who live in Gaza. They need to get out. And I will assure you one thing.
Why is the Egyptian government holding it up?
First of all, part of this is also Hamas. Okay, the danger that the Hamas didn't want them out. They didn't want even Palestinians to leave northern Gaza. Okay,
does the American government, excuse me for interrupting, but do they consider those people to be kidnapped because they are not allowed to leave?
I don't know what the definition of kidnap is or not. They want to leave. They should be allowed to leave. Yeah. And I will tell you, I know the people at the State Department. I know Tony Blinken. I know everyone is killing themselves to get them out as quickly as they can. These are families. And listen, and having spent, an hour this morning just talking to the family, the American families who actually have hostages inside these tunnels, it's heartbreaking. We need to get these people out. Hamas are a bunch of murderers and killers. They need to be contained. We need to get the hostages out. And we need to do what Israel needs to do to eliminate the threat to the Israeli people for this never to happen again.
Let me ask you one more thing before I let you go. When you say 30 days, these 30 days are pivotal for the future of Israel. Why do you say 30 days, and what do you mean?
I mean, I just, this is going in real time, right? Every hour there's something going on. You obviously need to get the hostages out. Time is of the essence. The Israelis are moving aggressively into Gaza. Time is of the essence. The suffering, the humanitarian suffering by the Palestinians in southern Gaza also needs to be resolved. We need to get resources to them. They don't deserve to be suffering like this. They don't deserve to be killed. And consequently, that's what we need to focus on. So there's a limited amount of time. It's got to be focused on, and this is going to be an exceptionally important 30 days.
Former Ambassador to Israel, Tom Nides, thank you very much, Tom. And thanks for what you're doing for these families and continuing your work here at home to help them. Thank you very much, Tom. Good to see you.
Thanks,
See you soon.
Hi, everyone. I'm Brian Kilmeade. I want you to do me a favor. I want you to click to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page. This is the only way that I know for sure that you're not going to miss any great commentary, any great news bites, any great interviews coming your way on Fox. You can get it all here on YouTube. So subscribe right now.